Your unconscious mind is about to reveal something you've been hiding from yourself, and it won't ask permission. Before you is an image of 5 knights. This is not a game. This is a Jungian mirror, a symbolic gateway that speaks directly to your unconscious before your conscious mind interferes. What you're about to discover has been guiding your decisions for years without your awareness. Throughout history, knights have symbolized more than warriors in armor. They represented psychological archetypes living inside the human psyche: the protector, the warrior, the balanced one, the ruler, the solitary wanderer. These are not fantasies. They are patterns embedded in what we call the collective unconscious. Timeless structures that shape how you love, how you defend yourself, how you handle power, and how you run from intimacy. This test operates beneath conscious thought. You will not analyze. You will not compare. You will simply notice which knight captures your attention first. That moment of recognition happens in the unconscious, and that's exactly why it reveals truth. But here's what most people miss. The knight you choose isn't showing you who you want to be. It's showing you the archetype that's been controlling your emotional patterns, possibly your entire life. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just which archetype you carry, but the shadow it casts over everything you do. Before we go deeper, if you're drawn to understanding the hidden forces inside your psyche, to exploring yourself beyond surface-level personality quizzes, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell, because what we do here goes far beyond the ordinary. We explore the unconscious. We face the shadow. We integrate what others ignore. Now look at the 5 knights. Don't overthink. Don't question. Which one pulls you attention first? Not the one you admire, not the one you think sounds best, the one that feels familiar before you understand why. Hold that choice. Don't change it. The unconscious speaks first. The ego justifies later. Here's the first thing you need to know. Whichever knight you chose reflects the dominant archetypal pattern running your life right now. And until you become conscious of it, it will continue to direct your fate. As the unconscious becomes conscious, what once controlled you becomes something you can finally choose. Let's begin the revelation. If you chose the Knight of Protection, your unconscious has learned that safety is not given. It must be built, defended, and maintained at all costs. This archetype lives in the space between fear and responsibility. You became the one others lean on because somewhere in your past you learned that vulnerability equaled danger. People see you as reliable, steady, grounded. What they don't see is the exhaustion you carry. The protector archetype operates from a belief formed early in life. If I stay strong, chaos stays away. If I hold things together, nothing will collapse. But here's the shadow hiding beneath that strength. You may have forgotten how to be held. Asking for help feels like admitting failure. Resting feels like betraying those who depend on you. You've become so identified with this role that you confuse love with duty and connection with responsibility. The unconscious whispers, if I stop protecting, I lose my value. But the question you've been avoiding is this: who protects the protector? This archetype serves you until it traps you. And the trap is this: you've built walls so strong that even love cannot enter without permission. the very strength that grounds others isolates you. If this resonates deeply, stay until the end of this video because we'll reveal how each archetype can transform its shadow into consciousness. And if you haven't already, like this video right now. It tells me to keep creating content that goes this deep. Now let's turn to the opposite extreme. If you chose the Knight of Fire, your unconscious is wired for intensity, movement, and confrontation. This is the warrior archetype, the one who learned that stillness equals death and action equals survival. You do not wait for life to happen, you make it happen. Your strength is undeniable. You endure pressure that breaks others. Pain does not stop you. In fact, sometimes it fuels you. Discipline, willpower, resilience, these are the currencies you trade in. But fire, when it never rests, burns inward. The shadow of the warrior appears as exhaustion disguised as strength. You may push forward long after your body begs for rest. You may confuse vulnerability with weakness and softness with surrender. The unconscious belief running beneath your action is this: if I stop fighting, I will be overtaken. But here's what the warrior rarely realizes. Many of the battles you're still fighting no longer exist. You hold tension even when the danger has passed. You stay ready for wars that ended years ago. And because you never learned to lay down your sword, intimacy feels like exposure, and rest feels like failure. So the question emerges: what happens when the fight is over? This is where the warrior must evolve or collapse, because fire without rest does not strengthen, it consumes. But something interesting is about to happen. The next night exists in direct opposition to this intensity, and understanding this contrast will reveal why you struggle in the areas you do. Stay with me. If you chose the Knight of Balance, your unconscious has learned equilibrium not as a concept, but as survival. You likely experienced emotional extremes earlier in life: chaos and peace, intensity and silence. And somewhere in that contrast, you discovered that balance is not weakness, it is wisdom. This is the archetype of integration. You hold opposing truths without needing to destroy one of them: strength and softness, action and rest, logic and emotion. You've learned to navigate complexity without losing yourself inside it. Your greatest gift is awareness. You listen before reacting. You observe patterns others miss. People come to you for perspective because your presence feels grounding. You do not rush to judgment. You allow space for understanding. But balance has a shadow too, and this shadow is subtle. Sometimes your calm becomes avoidance. In your desire to maintain harmony, you delay necessary confrontations. You tolerate dysfunction longer than you should, convincing yourself things will settle naturally. You mistake endurance for wisdom. The unconscious belief beneath this archetype whispers, if I disrupt the peace, I will lose control. So you hold back even when moving forward is necessary. You stay neutral when taking a side would serve you. The question you must face is this: are you balanced, or are you hiding? Because true balance is not the absence of movement, it is the ability to move without losing yourself. And sometimes growth requires disruption. We're halfway through, and here's what I need you to do. If this analysis is cutting closer to truth than anything you've heard before, subscribe and turn on notifications. These insights don't come from surface psychology. They come from depth work, from archetypal exploration, from the unconscious made visible. Support this kind of content by engaging right now. Now we move into territory most people fear, the archetype of power. If you chose the Knight of Power, your unconscious operates from structure, strategy, and control. This is the ruler archetype, the one who learned that chaos is dangerous and order is survival. You do not wait for someone else to take charge. You assume authority because the alternative feels like collapse. You plan ahead. You anticipate outcomes. You trust systems more than emotions and logic more than spontaneity. In moments of uncertainty, you become the anchor others depend on. Your ability to organize complexity into clarity is your greatest strength. But power always comes with isolation. The shadow of the ruler is this: when you are always the one who decides, who leads, who stabilizes, you lose the ability to be held. Vulnerability feels like a threat to control. Trusting others feels risky. Depending on someone else feels like inviting chaos. And so you remain strong, always strong, until strength becomes a prison. The unconscious belief beneath this archetype is clear. If I lose control, everything falls apart. But life cannot be managed. Some truths emerge only when control loosens. Some growth happens only in surrender. So the question the ruler must face is this: what remains when power is no longer needed? Because authority without freedom becomes confinement, and order without meaning becomes empty. And now we arrive at the final archetype, the one least understood, the one most alone. If you chose the Knight of Mystery, your unconscious does not follow external rules. It listens to something deeper. This is the wanderer, the solitary one. The archetype that values inner truth above social belonging. You move through life guided by intuition rather than expectation. You feel different even in crowds. Solitude does not frighten you, it restores you. Silence feels meaningful. Independence is not rebellion for you, it is authenticity. You sense that the most important things cannot be explained or controlled. Your strength is depth. You question surface answers. You seek meaning, not approval. Creativity and introspection flow naturally through you, but freedom has a shadow. Distance becomes isolation. Protecting your inner world slowly turns into withdrawal. You leave situations not because they're wrong, but because staying feels too demanding. Being understood feels rare. Explaining yourself feels exhausting. The unconscious belief beneath this archetype whispers, if I let others too close, I will lose myself. And so you remain free, but you remain alone. The question you must confront is this: are you free or are you hiding? Because true freedom does not require disappearing, and depth does not require distance. Here's the truth most people never grasp. All 5 archetypes exist inside you. Protection, fire, balance,
power, and mystery are all living patterns within your psyche. What differs is which one dominates at this moment in your life.
The unconscious places one archetype at the front, and that archetype runs your emotional patterns until you become conscious of it. Consciousness does not destroy the archetype, it integrates it. It transforms the shadow into awareness. So ask yourself this: if you could choose again tomorrow, would the same night step forward? And here's the final piece, the one we've been building toward. Growth does not mean abandoning your archetype. It means recognizing when it has become a cage instead of a guide. The protector must learn to be protected. The warrior must learn to rest. The balanced one must learn when disruption serves growth. The ruler must learn to release control. The wanderer must learn that intimacy does not erase identity. This is the work of individuation. This is the journey from unconscious reaction to conscious choice. And this is what we explore on this channel every single video. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself reflected in these archetypal patterns, do 3 things right now. Subscribe, like this video, and comment below which night you chose. Let's build a community of people willing to face their shadows and integrate their unconscious. Because insight does not end with understanding, it begins there.